Welcome to the GSLPES Module 2. We will discuss screening, assessment, diagnosing, and advising on speech and language issues. Standard 1 states that while participating on collaborative teams as related to communication disorders, such as SST, RTI, IEP teams, the SLP serves effectively by sharing professional knowledge and making recommendations for screening and/or evaluations. Performance indicators for Standard 1 are noted in the table below. A proficient SLP will participate in SST, RTI, IEP review teams. They will prepare for meetings and provide information regarding speech and language disorders, making recommendations for interventions and/or evaluations. An exemplary SLP will demonstrate differentiation of student assessment performance. They're able to explain the relationship between speech-language impairment and educational performance or impact. They'll continually demonstrate extensive knowledge of speech and language disorders. They will initiate leadership roles in meetings and pre-evaluation activities. Artifacts for measurement of Standard 1 could include RTI documentation, vision and hearing screenings, or screenings of the child's identified weakness area within the referral process. Screenings could be formal measures, such as a standardized language screener, or informal measures collected during Tier 3 of the RTI process. RTI documentation, data collection, and interventions can come in many forms. These can differ between schools. However, the RTI should be weakness area specific to the student's needs. HearBuilder is an online language intervention program which GCPS has a county-wide license for that can collect data for RTI and increases complexity as the student progresses. More RTI examples can be found in the SLP handbook. This is a developmental norms chart for articulation acquisition of English phonemes. This is an example of the type of professional knowledge that SLPs should be using in their recommendations for screening and evaluation. RTI documentation for each student that has undergone a special education evaluation is stored in their supplemental file in Section 5. To obtain more information about the speech impaired, RTI process and documentation and interventions, you can visit the Special Education Online Communication Center in eClass. Come to the Content browser and scroll down to the Speech Impaired program. Speech and Language. Click on it, go to SLP Handbook, and follow Referrals in RTI. Within here you can find further checklists, interventions, and forms used within the speech impaired program. Standard number 2 addresses assessment. The SLP analyzes and interprets information gained through assessment adhering to district and state guidelines to determine student eligibility or dismissal from services in the area of speech-language impairment. Performance indicators for Standard 2 are listed in the table below. A proficient SLP will demonstrate completed speech and language evaluation reports. They'll meet expectations for evaluations, use appropriate formal and informal assessment tools, gather case history information, and make recommendations based on evaluation results. An exemplary SLP will show differentiation between students with their assessment performance. They'll solicit information from multiple sources and provide written evaluations that are clear, in-depth, and defensible. A thorough articulation evaluation should include the following areas: an oral peripheral examination looking at oral structures and function, appropriate and adequate speech-language sample. This can be a conversational speech sample. Looking for stimulability for sound production, this could be noted at the single sound level, word level, or connected speech. Speech intelligibility. How much do you understand of what the child says? An evaluation should make note of the child's classroom performance, both academic and other oral expression tasks. At least one standardized articulation test should be used. Note that standard scores are not required for articulation tests as they're compared to developmental norms. Best practice for language assessment is to begin with a broad overview of language skills with an overall test such as the clinical evaluation of language fundamentals or a comprehensive assessment of spoken language or perhaps a preschool language scale. If a subtest falls in the below average range, other measures should be used to assess the area of weakness. An example of a formal measure to target deeper language areas could be vocabulary testing with a PPVT, Peabody Picture Vocabulary Test. An example of an informal measure could be a language sample of a child's story retell task. A minimum of 2 measures showing weaknesses are required to document a disorder. A resource to interpret evaluation results can be seen in this tool here. Fluency assessment can include conversational speech sampling or more formal language sampling. There should be notation or observation of classroom performance, both academically and socially. Fluency assessment can include the SSI, the Stuttering Severity Instrument. A case history from the parent and teacher could be very helpful in identifying stuttering behavior. The student's personal reactions to their speech or their own self-ratings will be beneficial as well. Voice disorder evaluations must involve a medical evaluation to rule out physical structure etiology. The presence of a medical condition does not necessitate the provision of voice therapy, nor does a doctor's prescription. A medical order is considered an opinion and is considered by the eligibility team when documenting adverse effects on the student's educational performance. The SLP report should compile all areas of assessment, including personal data and tests administered. The reason for referral or evaluation should be noted. Case history should note any pertinent information collected in record reviews, parent, and/or teacher reports. This student's domains of articulation, voice, and fluency were measured informally with conversational sampling. Language skills are reported next with an overall ability spoken language assessment. In-depth or deep area language testing of weakness areas follow, with descriptions and clear score reporting. For this student, another area of deep language assessment was needed and was reported here. Informal observation and assessment, including pragmatic observation, is noted here. The final area of an SLP report is the summary, which states the conclusion of the assessment, noting any weakness area. Eligibility determinations are not stated within an SLP report and should refer to a formal team meeting. SLP reports can be found in the supplemental file in Section 3 and should also be scanned and attached to eligibility and 3-year reevaluation documents in IEP Online. The last area of Domain 1 is Standard 3, Eligibility Determinations. SLPs complete assessments within appropriate timeframes, communicates to a variety of audiences the student's present levels and educational impact by integrating results of assessment. Performance indicators for Standard 3 are that a proficient SLP will explain contents of the eligibility and IEP clearly using language that parents and other team members understand. They'll respond appropriately to questions, comments from other team members. An exemplary SLP will explain how speech and language goals relate to student success with curriculum. They'll solicit feedback from parents, teachers, and students as part of their team. Timelines for evaluation can be found on the Gwinnett County Public Schools portal. Go to About Students and IEP Dashboard. Here, under District Materials, you can find referral timelines for the school year you need to reference. In eligibility discussions, these are areas that are not included under a speech-language impaired eligibility. Second language acquisition, unless a speech-language impairment is documented in the first language. Regional dialect related to cultural differences. Auditory processing disorders, when no language weaknesses are noted. And anxiety disorders, such as selective mutism.